we're going to focus on what can be unburdened by what has been.
What would that be, Sterling?
That would be the Daily Wire show Judged by Matt Walsh.
And how many people had they condemned to die? I mean, that was one of the things he was proud of, supposedly.
Yeah. Hundreds of people condemned to death by his ancestors, and he was just disappointed that he didn't have that power.
Yeah.
And it's very much in the same genre as Judge Judy or The People's Court, right, Thomas?
Yeah, the original, The People's Court.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to the Pop Culture Contrarian podcast with Thomas and Sterling.
Hello.
We're missing Andrew today. He's off investigating the Secret Service over what happened on the weekend.
Yeah, big job.
Yep. So just in case that reference wasn't clear, this is being recorded on July 18th, and 5 days ago, I guess, someone tried to shoot Donald Trump and nicked his ear, and grateful he's alive.
Fortunately, yeah.
But we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on what can be unburdened by what has been.
What would that be, Sterling?
That would be the Daily Wire show Judged by Matt Walsh. And in fact, I think we're going to be judged by Matt Walsh.
We are.
Yeah. So this is a new TV show on Daily Wire. It came out in May and June, and it's wrapped up now. So we waited until we could watch all of it. I have watched all of it. And it's very much in the same genre as Judge Judy or The People's Court, right, Thomas?
Yeah, the original, The People's Court.
Yeah. Thomas knows The People's Court. I don't know that one at all. I know Judge Judy a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing it on TV as a kid, so it's the one I'm most familiar with.
Yeah, and same for me with Judge Judy. I wouldn't turn it on, but if it was on, I might watch, court case, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, The People's Court set this TV genre, and it has expanded. I think there's other ones besides Judge Judy and The People's Court.
Yeah, Judge Judy has a new show, Judy Justice, I think, which is kind of the same thing, I guess. I don't really know.
Right. But I do think there's at least one other court TV show.
There's others out there. Yeah, for sure. Well, unlike The People's Court, which is mostly serious, and unlike Judge Judy, which is, again, mostly serious, you get a lot of Judge Judy, at least, chastising the defendants or the plaintiffs or whoever, and telling them how they're living their life wrong, kind of in a Dr. Phil kind of way.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of that in this, but the difference is mostly the court cases are played for laughs. And Matt Walsh plays his position as a judge, which he's not actually, he's never passed whatever exam you have to be to be a judge.
I thought he was descended from a long line of judges.
Yeah, that's true. At the beginning on the first episode, they show a bunch of different judges who all have Matt Walsh's face. One of them is Abraham Lincoln.
And how many people had they condemned to die? I mean, that was one of the things he was proud of, supposedly. Yeah.
Hundreds of people condemned to death by his ancestors, and he was just disappointed that he didn't have that power.
Yeah.
Which I guess, if it's Matt Walsh, that checks out, at least with his public persona.
Yeah.
But I found the show very amusing. Kind of the way a typical episode will go is the people will come in, they'll be told to rise while the judge comes in. Matt Walsh comes in, and he does something silly, turns completely around in his chair, bangs his gavel until I don't know what you call it, the thing you bang the gavel on falls off on the floor, and the bailiff has to go pick it up. He writes with a full quill feather pen.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. And the bailiff, I thought, has a great sense of comedy. I think he adds a lot to that show.
Yeah. And, I mean, like it says, it's filmed before a live studio audience, and I believe this live studio audience is the audience for the courtroom.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody else there.
No, I don't think there could be. I think it's actually a physical courtroom they're filming in. So,
or a set that's completely built to be like a courtroom. I think it's probably what it is.
I guess that makes more sense.
Yeah.
But people bring their court cases before Matt Walsh.
Their disagreements.
Yeah. In one episode, it's this one lady ordered. It's not Botox. She calls it something else, but it's basically it's Botox.
Yeah.
And the other lady who she helps give it to, the defendant, I guess injected too much Botox, went on a plane, and had her lips explode.
Yeah, that was pretty grotesque.
That was pretty grotesque. You see pictures of it, which is not great.
Well, you see pictures of her lips sewn back up after she went to the doctor.
Well, it looks quite Frankensteinish.
It looks pretty bad.
Yeah. And the kind of the interesting part is Matt Walsh, if you have followed him at all, you know he's a pretty judgmental person. He's pretty much telling you shouldn't do this, you should do this. This thing is just bad and no one should ever do it. And he speaks hyperbolically.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they got this idea for this show off of the segment of his podcast where he talks about who he's canceling this day.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's kind of in that vein where he's looking at the arguments that the two are making, and from every episode I've seen, he generally would rather not side with either party.
Right.
But he figures out who is the least in the wrong and then offers his judgment.
Right. That is usually what he does. Like he several times says, no one's in the right here.
Yeah.
But you're less in the right. There's one episode where a uncle gives his pothead niece $300 to go buy him weed in Florida, because she has a medical card to buy weed in Florida. And so the uncle gives the niece the money. She goes, buys the weed, buys some other stuff with that money too, baby supplies, and then goes and smokes all the weed with her friends. And her whole position in the entire court case is, you shouldn't have trusted me. Why did you trust me with your money?
Yeah.
And he's like, you didn't even bring me any weed.
Which is interesting in the fact that this courtroom is in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm not sure what the laws are necessarily as to the legality of cannabis in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely not. In Florida, you can get a medical exemption. In Tennessee, you still can't, I believe.
Okay.
But they're just talking about it. They're not doing it.
They're not, yeah. I mean,
but certainly I would think even in Florida, I don't think it's probably legal if I have a medical exemption card to go buy it and then give it to you.
You're probably right. It's just that the attitudes surrounding cannabis obviously have changed quite a bit in this country.
Yeah.
Whereas, or to the point where it'll probably become nationally legal, or since it seems like it's almost
It's been 10 years away for 50 years or so.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do think that there's a lot of problems with that, but it's another story.
That is another. Well, anyhow, the way Matt Walsh wraps up the case is he says to the uncle, you're supposed to be the role model here because obviously Matt Walsh very much is against weed. And so for him, in any way, if you're encouraging it, you're doing something wrong, which a lot of people would disagree with, I think, today. But that's Matt Walsh's position, and he's the judge.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't award the uncle anything, even though he's out $300 and gotten absolutely nothing. And the niece is just kind of gleeful about the fact that nothing bad's happening to her. Matt Walsh chastises her, but he doesn't end up making her pay anything.
Yeah, and I assume, I think that these are, according to what it says, that these are genuine parties who have agreed to a third-party arbiter who happens to be Matt Walsh. Right. And so they're bringing their case, as it were, the disagreement before him and letting him judge for them. And that's I think it's the same. Actually, I think it's probably the same basic laws that the People's Court, when it first formed in 1981, based the same kind of concept from. So it's small claims. Obviously. Yeah. These are civil cases, small claims. It is interesting. So you asked the question, I asked the question, what would motivate people to want to air their grievances on a TV show like this with somebody? Because
$300 that's about middle of the pack in terms of how much money they're arguing
I think the most I heard was like $5,000.
Yeah, I think that's the most anyone asks for
in a judgment. Yeah.
And the smallest amount is, I think, $50.
Okay.
Actually, even less. The last episode of the season is about one of those Tesla balls. You know what those are, where you stick your hand on it and it glows and in the shape of your hand. And the last case of the season is just, he broke my Tesla ball and replaced it for $38, and it's not as good as the one I got because I earned that at an arcade as a reward, which was just completely ridiculous. But they were there, kind of clearly having fun. So I guess
they're 15 minutes of fame. I think that's part of, I think, the draw is you'll get people who come in and say, I think, hey, can we get the craziest case possible before the judge and let's just have fun with this?
Yeah, I think they do a better job of that as the season progresses. Yeah. Maybe they got less serious cases. They moved in that direction.
Right.
Because in the first couple episodes, they're somewhat serious. There's lips blowing up. That's pretty bad. Of course, the person alleging the other person made her lips blow up. That's ridiculous. That's not what happened. But it's bad that happens. Then there's another case where a girl crashes her boyfriend's car, right?
Yeah.
And does some pretty serious damage to it. And at first I'm watching this and I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm just watching stupid people with stupid problems and I'm laughing at them for being stupid, which I don't feel great about.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my problem with a lot of reality TV.
Yeah.
But then as it progressed, I realized, okay, it seems like they're getting something out of this. It seems like maybe either they're being paid an appearance fee, which I know is how it worked on Judge Judy, or, they are really just about the 15 minutes of fame. Because it's almost always someone they know. It's like their friend, or it's their uncle, or it's their girlfriend. And it's like, why would you air your dirty laundry in this close personal relationship before, the couple dozen people in the courtroom?
Yeah. And I think, logically, it's going to be people that you're going to have some type of relationship with, I think, in that type of a setting. It's if you're seriously having a complaint, some type of civil complaint against a stranger or somebody who you do have a genuine beef against, I think you're probably not going to go the route of like TV court.
Yeah, probably not. Some of these people do seem genuinely upset at one another. Some of these people seem like they're just having fun with their buddy, kind of.
Yeah. And to that point, you were saying it felt better when it was clear that they were just kind of doing it for fun more than for serious, which makes it, that your point against how you are not a fan of like this type of reality TV because you feel like it's maybe exploitative of people in a certain way. Is that part of it? Or?
Yeah, for sure. Like my go-to example on why I don't like particularly dating reality shows like The Bachelor or Bachelorette is at one point in my life, I had a bunch of friends who all loved both of those shows. And so we were watching, I guess it was The Bachelorette because, I was not going to ruin all their good time. And it got down to like the final 3 guys that she was choosing between, the Bachelorette was choosing between. And she went to the father's house of the guy that she was looking at to be her guy, I guess, and makes them have a very public reunion after like 12 years of not speaking to one another, having serious father-son issues there. Airs all that dirty laundry on national television, tells the guy she loves him, and then at the end of that episode, she does not give him a rose, and he's off the show. And when I watched that, I was just like, okay, I don't like this. This makes me feel like a worse person for having watched it.
Yeah, you feel like you're seeing people humiliated and manipulated and for your entertainment, effectively.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think, coming back around to this being a Daily Wire show, and I know that when I was gone, you guys did Mr. Bertram.
Yeah.
Both seem to be shows that are kind of derivative of other shows that exist that are successful.
Yeah.
Like we would say Mr. Bertram, you could look at Family Guy or something like that. And obviously judged is the People's Court or Judge Judy.
Yeah.
So what do you think regarding these types of programs the Daily Wire is kind of trying to do?
I think in general, a lot of the time it's let's put content on our website so people can come and just when they get home at the end of the day, they can open up Daily Wire instead of opening up Netflix, and there'll be something for them to watch that they'll enjoy, kind of regardless of whatever genre. We'll get a little bit of everything.
Okay. So is it kind of let's not try to reinvent the wheel so much as let's take from those, for the term used, genres that exist and just kind of build our own show that won't have the stuff we object to, the woke messaging and things like that. And let's see if we can do a quality show.
Right.
Now how would you judged versus some of the other stuff that Daily Wire's put out?
So I've watched from what Daily Wire's put out. I've seen Mr. Bertram. I've seen Judged. Let me actually look at their catalog real quick, see what else I've watched. I've seen Sound of Hope, which is not a unique thing to them, but they participated in that. Lady Ballers. I would say...
we reviewed Lady Ballers.
Yeah, of the kind of comedy things I've seen from them, I'd say this one is the one that scratched my comedy itch best.
Okay, so that would be basically 3, right?
Yeah, 3 things so far. There's probably some others. But this is the one that was making me laugh, making me actually want to watch the next episode after I got past the first 3, I'd say. Because the first 3 are a little bit more serious, and I just appreciated the less serious tone. That's the reason I'm saying that. But there's just kind of a vaudeville aspect to a lot of what Matt Walsh and the bailiff, Kyler Finney, plays the bailiff. And he's quite funny. Frequently, Matt and Kyler will get into little side discussions where they're just like, have you ever done that? Yeah, I've done. And the bailiff's always being a little bit crazier and more extreme than Matt Walsh wanted him to be in his responses.
Yeah, okay.
And it just works really well, I think, as comedy.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I thought, to me, having seen not as many episodes as you, I've seen about 3 episodes of it. Like I said, it reminded me very much of People's Court. It was kind of where Matt Walsh, like you said, took on more of a little bit of a Judge Judy element as opposed to the People's Court Judge Wapner. Judge Wapner, generally speaking, he was a very kind of by-the-book judge.
So he behaved like a real judge in a courtroom, more or less.
Okay. Yeah. And so, I mean, he would ask, like, kind of like, why were you thinking that? Why would you do this, etc. But he was trying to primarily get at the truth. And I think that you see that a little bit here in Judged. And not to say that Judge Judy didn't as well, but they're also kind of dealing with the cultural attitudes. And I would have to say specifically, that's what Matt Walsh is kind of getting at here. Yeah. He's wanting to say that's silly for you to kind of think that, like when he was going after the 2 women with the Botox, or not Botox, whatever the stuff they were pumping into their bodies to make himself look
better, allegedly.
Better, yeah. You know, I think he kind of chided. He did chide them
and said, no one thinks you look better now.
Right. For engaging in that. So that's something that I think Judge Judy would do stuff like that.
Some of that. Yeah. But yeah, this is a little bit more focused. Matt Walsh is a conservative Christian. Yeah. So for us, at least, it aligns quite closely with maybe what we would say. He might say it differently. But like in one episode, a guy who was a nurse got stalked by this girl who he then started to go out with. And Matt Walsh was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? That's just the stupidest thing you can do, is go out with your stalker. And so there's a lot of that. And, you know, he's against casual sex and stuff.
Right.
I just want to throw this in because it's one of the funniest things. In one of the episode 10, episode 11, somewhere in there, there's an episode where the plaintiff is hired to go clean the defendant's house. They're both women. The plaintiff goes and finds a bunch of taxidermy stuff, because apparently that's the defendant's hobby, and like some animals in pickle jars. And so she's telling Matt Walsh about this, and she says, yeah, and I saw like a mouse in a pickle jar, and that was disturbing to me because, and Matt Walsh cuts her off, and he's like, you don't have to qualify why that's disturbing.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of tone he sets, and it gets a good laugh out of me, at least.
Do you think, back to Daily Wire, what they're doing with this, do you think they have more intention than just, this is going to be an entertaining show? Or do you think there was, do you kind of perceive of, it is Matt Walsh, like you just said. I think he's a Catholic, right? And so he is expressing his, in a very humorous, kind of mocking manner.
Yeah.
Or he does.
Very mocking.
He's very mocking. But do you think, is it done well enough to kind of make it so that it might cause the audience to want to pause and say, hey, yeah, that was a dumb way to think, or that you shouldn't do that, or do you think it was just more just entertaining and funny?
I think the main goal was, let's be entertaining and funny for this show. I think there was a secondary goal of, let's also try to, you know, make fun of ideas that need to be made fun of, that need to be kind of shunned.
Okay.
And say, this is a bad idea. You shouldn't do this. Shame on you for having done it.
Yeah.
So I think there's some of that. I don't know what they hope will happen.
Yeah, because that's one thing that I find a little bit of a back and forth on in my own mind is the program exists in the sense that here people bring these ridiculous cases, and Matt Walsh is sitting there often mocking them for the ridiculousness of their thinking in regards to it, and exposing it as ridiculous thinking.
Yeah.
But if you didn't have people engaged in this type of ridiculous thinking, you wouldn't even have a show. So it's almost like, at what point is it people saying, well, that's, at least it's entertaining, as a justification for being not critical thinkers? Yeah.
So you're wondering if this is going to maybe even do the opposite of what they might want and encourage people to do these ridiculous things.
In one sense, because if you're already a critical thinker, you're kind of already saying, that's silly, or that was dumb. Right. Why did you make that decision? But But on the other end of it, why are we watching it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You watch it because the same reason you watch train wrecks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's I don't know. It seems like there's maybe a perverse element that can exist in a lot of these shows. Like you were saying, just in the whole
incentivizing the thing you want to stop. Yeah.
In the whole kind of reality TV genre, the people that are ending up getting on those kind of programs are those who are not just normies.
Right.
They're going to be somebody who's got something weird or unique. And so it almost promotes this kind of maybe behavior for a segment. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree that I think the reality genre in general does that. As part of the reality genre, I guess you'd have to say this is contributing to that. Mm-hmm. But I guess I hope in the future, if they have more seasons of this, which I assume they will, because I thought it was one of their better offerings so far in terms of entertainment. I hope they'll do more of what you see in the later episodes where it's more overtly silly. And it's because in like that last episode I was talking about with the Tesla ball, both of those guys were there kind of having fun. There was another episode with two magicians and they both get to show off their magic, in the courtroom. So it's like clearly for them, this is just a win-win.
It's a show.
And more of that, I think, and then you don't have that risk. Because in some of the earlier episodes, and this one I just found it sad. There's two young girls, like 20 and 19 or something, living in Florida. And one of them, who had formerly been an exotic dancer, encourages the other one to go with her to this next city over where they could be exotic dancers. And she encourages her to do that. The other one, the defendant, I suppose, spends a bunch of money learning to pole dance and stuff and buying outfits. Then they get to the club and the one who'd been a dancer before backs out and says, I can't do this. And so neither one of them does it, which I'm all for. That was great. Mm-hmm. Good decision, not becoming exotic dancers. But it does it's just sad that they're arguing about, you made me spend money to be an exotic dancer, and now I'm not even getting the money from that. And in the end, even the one who backed out wouldn't say she wouldn't do it again if she needed the money.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuff, let's just maybe leave that out of the conversation entirely. I accept that it's a real thing, but unless you're offering some kind of hope or some kind of solution, which is not obvious in the show, maybe they were being paid, and so maybe you're giving them a way to earn money a little bit more legitimately, and that's good. But that's not obvious in the show. So maybe leave that out, do more, magicians having annoying spats about you stole my trick kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting in both of those cases, magicians and these girls, both are seeking a kind of showmanship, audience, fame, as it were, that way, and in finance, obviously.
Right.
But, I mean, of course, the Daily Wire exists, or at least this element of the Daily Wire exists, their entertainment section, to produce programming that people consume and watch and are entertained by.
Right.
So, I mean, I think asking these questions, I'm sure they're asking these questions too, to some degree.
Yeah. Well, and because especially if you've ever watched any of their Backrooms episodes where you see all the personalities just sitting around talking, that's something Jeremy Boring always hits on very hard, is that he wants this to be, despite the fact that the main goal is to make money, he wants it to be a Christian organization promoting Christian values. And so I do wonder with this show, what was your evaluation of that? Why did you make the decision that this fit with your brand?
Yeah. I think there is an element that judging behavior, because he is consistent in that. He's judging their behavior and their thought process, which is a form of pre-behavior, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking this, which is legitimate, say, well, that was a bad thought or that's a bad thing. We've kind of, as a culture, become overly permissive of just very poor behavior and excusing it by saying, don't you judge me.
So maybe the goal is, let's bring back, no, that's a stupid idea, don't do that.
Yeah, I think that's when I mentioned his segment within his podcast, your cancel segment, it's that same kind of, what he's trying to point out is this type of behavior, this type of thinking is wrong.
Yeah.
Not just it's a bad idea, and there's elements of that, but there's elements in which we have to say any culture that's going to survive has to recognize that there are values and standards of ethics, right and wrong, good and evil, and we need to be willing to say, that's wrong.
That's a good thought. That could be kind of what they're thinking when they make this, because while he does judge and mock these people, he stops short. I can't think of a case where he goes over the line into humiliating them.
Yeah.
He stops short of that, that's where you want to stop short.
Right.
Sometimes people do need to be chastised and told you're stupid, you're being silly, and you're not really thinking.
Yeah.
But you don't want to humiliate them.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
So maybe you're right. Maybe it's kind of promoting the idea that certain ideas should be mocked.
Yeah. I just think that in the postmodern world that basically has taken over the West, and it's because the postmodern mindset has taken over, we have conversations like, what is a woman? It's this, there are no rules, including definitional rules for terms, almost, that has just resulted in kind of this chaos of even just like values and knowledge and what's right. Nobody seems, it's all
about your lived experience.
Right. Whatever is my truth. And so that is an untenable worldview for a culture, because it eventually will crush itself.
Yeah.
It just ends up in insanity, because that's what you're doing. You're pushing insanity. And so maybe,
it's pushing common sense kind of.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the point. I would say that they see the value of this show is, let's push common sense through a judge show.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably right. I would agree with you. All right. Well, we're running towards the end of our time here.
Yeah.
So rating it as a TV show out of 10, as maybe even rating it as a reality TV show, how would you rate this?
Well, I'm going to rate it based upon the reality TV show genre that it fits under, which is the courtroom reality shows.
Yeah.
Out of 10, I would give it an 8. I think it hits all the things that you would expect. I think Matt Walsh is entertaining in himself, what he does. I mean, he's goofy. Maybe sometimes he pushes it a little bit, but for the most part, I think it works.
Yeah, he walks the line well of not too goofy.
Yeah. So I would give it an 8. I think I agree with you. I think this is probably one of the better programs that I've seen Daily
I would
Wire
say
do.
Unequivocally it's their best comedy so far.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
It's not strictly a comedy, but in terms of the point is the viewers are going to laugh. This is the best thing
right.
delivered.
If I put it under that genre, I agree with that. I mean, Lady Ballers was kind of more of a try hard, and the Mr. Bertram was similarly, to me, it was.
To be clear, I think Mr. Bertram has legs. I think it could grow into something that's really good. Lots of this kind of adult animation TV shows aren't at their best on season 1.
Just like anything, there's a getting to know the character of the cast of characters. Like when you go back to like the very first season of like The Simpsons, for example, you're like, this is not The Simpsons. This is not The Simpsons.
Right.
So I would give him that's true. It's in development stage, maybe to some degree, or it's still feeling itself out.
But for Judged, you said 8 stars.
Yeah, I'd give Judge, because I don't think Judge needs much more. I think it's pretty much there. It fits, like I said, I'm comparing it to like Judge Judy and People's Court.
Yeah.
It fits right in there. So yeah, 8 out of 10.
Okay. I'm actually, normally I try to pick a slightly different number, but I think you nailed it. I think it's 8 out of 10. The 2 points off are the episode about the strippers made me sad.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel sad.
Right.
And it's just, I don't like that that's the situation they're in. But yeah, I think the only thing I would say it needs is a little bit more judicious approach to which cases you put on the show.
Yeah. I would say they could take a cue from People's Court in this. People's Court used to always interview after the fact the defendant and the plaintiff in the case, just to get their immediate take on reaction to the judgment.
Right.
I don't know if that's worth it. They clearly haven't thought that that's worth it for this. But that might make it a little more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's well paced. There's 2 court cases per episode. The judgment is just Matt Walsh walking through a door and then walking back through the door and doing something funny when he comes back in.
Yeah. That's his deliberation there.
That's his deliberation area. Yeah. And like I said, I think the bailiff is easily the breakout character. There's not a lot of characters, but if there was one, it's the bailiff. I think he's quite funny. I think he's probably, I hope to see him in more things from Daily Wire, because I do think he's got a great sense of comedy.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I think that's to that point. I think Daily Wire is. I'm starting to see people that have been in the Daily Wire and a few other places in some of their shows, and so they're definitely, I think, a growing magnet for talent.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, in general, that is what we're hoping for.
Yes.
We're hoping Daily Wire becomes a big magnet for talent. They produce good quality, moral products that you can consume and not feel sad or feel bad about yourself for watching.
Yeah.
And I think this is definitely something they can build on in that vein for sure.
I am genuinely interested in their next coming show, the Pendragon cycle.
Yes. Yeah. I'm excited for that one.
That will be really, to me, very telling because
that's one of their biggest. They've spent the most effort. They've spent the most money. Yeah.
And so that I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yep.
Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, if the pattern is Lady Ballers and then Mr. Bircham and then Judged and then Pendragon cycle, then you would assume Pendragon cycle will be the best because I think that's the progression we've seen.
Yeah.
Is an increase in quality as they've been going on, which is natural.
Yeah. They get better at their craft.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's enough. We kind of broke down what Judged by Matt Walsh is like.
Judged.
If you have any interest in this kind of courtroom reality show, I think you'll probably like this.
But we love your opinion.
Yes.
Tell us.
Tell us for sure. Be sure to like and subscribe to us. We were supposed to say that earlier, but we're saying it now. This has been the Pop Culture Contrarian podcast with Thomas and Sterling. Hopefully we'll have Andrew next week. We're brought to you by the Patriot Post, which is the oldest conservative news digest on the web. It's right and it's free. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.